I worked at NBC Universal for 3 years in the corporate strategy side and international distribution. And then I started Viki with co-founders. And what we're doing is taking content global and localizing it. So I'm going to merge the talk from a studio perspective as well as a startup perspective and see where the disruption points are. And I think we're taking questions via SMS or at the end. So feel free to pile them up because there'll be a discussion. OK. So over the last 20 years, from a US perspective, at least as a proxy, you can see that the growth has been exponential, and you can see that there's very strong growth across the different dimensions. In fact, 75% of people now prefer to watch things on TV instead of internet, and they're spending twice as much time on TV than they are on the internet. Up to 15% of our lives, he or she are spending on internet today, actually on TV today, rather than internet. Expand this globally, so roughly about 90 billion market. If you add the global TV industry, I pay TV to it, from a cable side, you're looking at 370 billion market. So TV is there, content is king, but the audience is going global. So the 1-minute version, if you will, of this talk is, good news is content is king. The problem is margins are getting squeezed, audience are getting fragmented. It's really hard to get the same ratings as you were getting before because you have a lot of channels everywhere, be it on YouTube or cable channels today. So to get them, you got to go global, but you got to go really global. And you got to go on every platform, regardless of holdback windows or regardless of devices. So I'll start peeling those layers of the onion and give you a sense of what it looks like. OK, so let's start with the broader story. If you look over the last 20 years, this is, again, US example as a proxy. Since 1990, you see that the number of channels in a household in the US has gone roughly 5x growth. What you were seeing in about 20 channels about 20 years ago, now you're seeing 128 channels on average. And this actually excludes your Michelle fans on a YouTube that gets twice the ratings that a Style Network gets today, or your 17 million yoga enthusiasts that YouTube talks about. So there are hundreds and hundreds of channels now that are getting cable-like ratings that are not just on your TVs or cable channels. And the phenomenon is the same if you look at it globally. There's been this 2 to 5x growth over time. But your average consumer still today is consuming 15 channels. So even though we have a dial and we can go and see 200 channels, they're looking at stuff that they're familiar with, stuff that they're interested in, and they're stuck on that 15. So you got to find these people wherever they are and wherever they're watching the content. So as this phenomenon has been growing, what I wanted to do is sort of plot TV ratings around it. This is when YouTube had come in. You can see the curve hasn't really shifted much, except towards the end. From 2010 onwards, you see that there's been a slope with their branded channels, premium channels, as well as now the concept of multi-channel networks. If you're familiar with this, this is like Maker Studios or Full Screen or Machinima. They're dedicated around interest groups. Machinima would be gaming. Full Screen and Maker Studios would be around sort of a shorter form entertainment content. They're getting about 2 billion video starts on a monthly basis each. And these are dedicated channels rolling up a network, like an NBC Universal with Sci-Fi, Bravo, MSNBC, et cetera, in one place. This is starting to happen on the web. So the curve actually has gone, I would say, 2, 3x even from 2009 onwards. Let's contrast this with TV ratings. So what you're seeing here is your average TV ratings from 1990 down to 2009. And it's going in the reverse direction. So about 20 years ago, the ratings that you were getting, within 10 years already they were half. If you wait another 10 years to today, the ratings are getting even lower than that. So right now on the web, you're starting to see TV-like ratings of episodes, in our case, some Korean dramas, that are getting 1, 2 million people watching one episode. So we're not on the cable, we're not on the box, but we have cable-like ratings in a lot of the markets, but we happen to be on different devices. So the play in this case is a cross-platform. So what's happening here as the ratings are going down and it's getting fragmented, content owners are starting to look for their audience globally. And that's costing money to sort of go global and try and figure out the global strategy. So what we wanted to look at is when the costs are going up, what does that mean? Now the cost base is going up, you're starting to spend more and more money on customer acquisition. So with margins getting squeezed, the bad news is that it's becoming harder for shows to succeed. It's becoming a higher hurdle rate. So I want to parlay this with sort of US shows. What you're seeing vertically on the axis is sort of profitability of a show. These are in millions. What you're seeing towards the top is shows going close to 60, 80 million in profits. But what's happening for season 1 to season 2, only 35% of shows are surviving now. So you have a big cliff there. So 65% are gone, you're left with 35%. To start making profits, typically, you want to get to a season 2, and only 15% are getting to that point. So to get to profitability, basically, you got to take a lot of swings. In US terms, you're taking a lot of at-bats to be able to bet on hits. Going global and going across platforms, you basically don't have to bet on hits, because there are some shows that don't do great in your home country, and I'll give you an example of that in Playful Kiss, that ends up finding massive audiences elsewhere. We have one show I'll talk about that was not doing well in Korea. It was our #1 show, and it made a tremendous amount of money for the content owner, and we'll get into that in a second. So this sort of frames it. So content is still there. There's tremendous demand for it, but audiences across platform and the audiences everywhere. So to get to profitability, you got to sort of find the right audience. And I'll throw some ideas and my thoughts, at least, of how we've seen it at Viki, working for some content owners, starting to get to scale, and how we think we can replicate it across genres. And it's beyond just Korean. I think there are 25, 30 different countries with phenomenal content that we can replicate with a similar model. OK, so billion people literally are watching professional content today. This is not just the YouTube content. And 85% of what they're watching is not from Hollywood. They're watching Korean, Japanese anime, Bollywood. We're finding things like now Turkish, Greek shows, Brazilian telenovelas, Indonesian horror films. There's so many genres, Egyptian dramas, UAE dramas, all of them are actually starting to cross borders. So there's so much demand for this content that one of our shows that we looked at, one of our early shows, was a show called Playful Kiss. It was a false negative. It's got a rating, I think, about 5% of households in Korea, which is not considered that high. Typically, hit shows would get about 30, or maybe 40%. But in this case, the show was our #1 show, and it got translated in 57 languages. So let me give you a quick pause and explain how translations work in Viki, so you have a sense of what I'm talking about. So on Viki, we're sort of building Hulu for the rest of the world. Hulu from the US as in sort of a place for professional content. But our site is powered by fans. We have people like you and I in the tens of thousands that come and translate the show, create subtitles. Some do it for language learning, some do it for the love of the content, some do it for bringing down language barriers. They want to see the shows travel. So everything on Viki is a channel, and a channel has a manager from the community, a volunteer manager, just like Wikipedia. So Viki is video plus wiki. That's why it's VIKI. That's the concept, video plus wiki. They manage that channel, and they recruit moderators by language, French, Arabic, English, etc. We have about 156 languages for translations on Viki, roughly 300 million words translated. So this moderators go and recruit the rest of the community. And they get so passionate about the translations and the nuances that they want to get that we had a medical drama where they went and recruited an emergency room nurse, a live emergency room nurse to get the nuance of the words right, or a lawyer for a legal drama. So in any case, they translated this in 57 languages. Roughly 1,400 fans translated it collaboratively. So you can translate one word, go get coffee, come back, the entire episode could be done, because you have someone else policing your work or editing it and giving it up and down, and the best translations stay. And when the moderators and managers are happy with it, they can lock the subtitles, so no one else can basically change it around. So they translated in 57 languages. It got 50 million video views and 5 million viewers, unique viewers over the life of the show. This translated roughly to 1 million per episode. Knowing from my studio background how shows on NBC or HBO and others do, this is the equivalent of a mega hit, at least in Southeast Asia, if you look at the numbers. And this show itself, if you compare it, let's say, with an HBO like the Game of Thrones, it was about 5 or 6 million per episode production. It was a total of 60 million based on public data. This show was entire 16 episodes, was less than half of one episode's cost. But for an advertiser, our business model is ads just like TV. You see a 15-second or 30-second ad in the beginning, and then you see mid-rolls and an end roll. For an advertiser, it doesn't matter. If the show is getting TV-like ratings, it doesn't matter if the ad is in front of a $5 million production or a 50 million production, because they're looking for the best audience for this primetime content. So for that reason, it did really well. What was more interesting and surprising for us is 74% of viewers that were watching the content were not even Asian. In the US, the split was roughly 20% African American, 20% Caucasian, 30% were watching in Spanish subtitles. So what this was doing is it was starting to increase the size of the pie. So you're not really competing for the slices. If you're different networks for the same market, you're starting to find audience that are watching it in subtitles. And for that reason, it starts opening it up. And I'll give you a few more examples of what the subtitles look like in different markets. So the show did so well that we took it to Hulu in multiple languages. We took it to Netflix in the US. Now with Netflix, we're taking it to Latin America because we have Portuguese and Spanish subtitles created by the fans again, and all of a sudden it opens up another 42 markets for them. We're talking with them about Scandinavia and other places. So again, with the fan-created subtitles that are of good quality and very, very fast speed, almost beating the pirates to the translations, it starts opening up these additive markets. And YouTube actually went ahead and produced a sequel of the show, a YouTube version of it, out of the success. So just not to take that in isolation, I wanted to compare it to another show we have on Viki that was higher production budget and had really good ratings in Korea. This one was called Boys Before Flowers. The interesting story here is, typically you would expect a pop. If I had a laser pointer, I'd point at it, but it's sort of this area right here. Immediately you see when the show is fresh, it's top of mind for people, and there is sort of a lot of brand value around it. The show does really well. And then you would expect the show, and this is cumulative, you would expect the show to start flatlining at some point because new shows are coming up. What's happening in our case, it continues going up and up and up, and these two shows are still in the top 20 on any given week on Viki. So that bump you see, to the one that says BBF, the green line towards the top, 53 languages for that show. Towards the end there, that's Romanian. So all of a sudden, the Romanian subtitles were added to it, and you're seeing people watching Boys Over Flowers in Romania. So you're seeing new markets being opened up, and sort of the shelf life, if you will, of the show, and the monetization window, if you will, it's starting to expand. So it gets to a point where it's sort of primetime content in the home country, you're unlocking the value around it, and you don't have like a time limit. You're taking prime time from prime time to literally to any time. So you're going from prime time to any time in this kind of an example, and you have more of an opportunity to explore it. And these shows have done so well that after digital, they were able to start selling to a lot of other countries. What we do with our content partners is we also provide analytics. We say that these were the writings we were getting on the internet. There could be an opportunity for you to go and sell it to the broadcasters in those countries. We share the data back. Becomes a valuable tool for content owners to go and sort of open up higher margin products until digital revenues catch up with the traditional revenues. So these are two examples of how it's been beneficial. To give you a sense of the impact, so I'm saying subtitles are something that we do, but I want to give you a sense of what they mean in terms of numbers. So this is Playful Kiss, the special edition version of it that YouTube had done, and we partnered with them and the producer on. This is, again, months since launch at the bottom. What you're seeing vertically as the video starts. The bottom language, the bottom part where it says Korean, this is the show being viewed in Korean. So this is the control group, if you will. This is people watching Korean and Korean show in Korean. They don't need subtitles. What you're seeing at the top is people watching in subtitles. This special edition had 33 languages. We provided to the YouTube channel 7 languages. And as soon as we provided languages, you can see new people starting to watch it. That bump towards the middle there is Japanese language, which is very popular. Korean dramas are very popular in Japan. So you see when the subtitles are adding, there's an impact. So we're starting to see that taking the home country and getting the subtitles on it, there is a demand to take a show from a home country to the next 10, 20, 30 countries. And we don't need every country. We never license the home country because we don't need subtitles in there. It brings the cost down. We open up the next markets that they're going after. And we take it fairly global across devices. So the impact you see here is 3.2x. We've seen that when we add all languages on it for popular shows for us typically do 25 to 30 languages, the impact can be up to 5x. So is it just in English subtitles? Wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of the demand being there for other languages as well. What you're seeing in this bar chart is Playful Kiss again, how it's being viewed on Viki in subtitles. What you're seeing all the way to the left is Latin America. What you're seeing all the way, to my left, that would be to your right. What you're seeing on Europe, it's going to be sort of everything except UK because UK is already in English. In the middle, I put some of the countries in Southeast Asia because I figured that might be a market you're interested in. So what you see in Europe and Latin America is the majority of the consumption is not in English. In Latin America, clearly they're watching in Spanish and Portuguese. In Europe, they're watching in multiple languages. And Romanian has become very popular. This is taking sort of the first few weeks of last month. I was saying Romanian is starting to give the video content a bump. This is where Romanian is coming in. If you look at Singapore and Malaysia and Philippines, majority of the consumption is with English subtitles. Typically, English with the community comes on in a matter of hours. We get an on-air show, put it on, and the community is already organized. The channel is already there, so they start the translations. But places like Thailand and Indonesia, you see the majority of the viewership is coming in sort of local language. So as soon as you're starting to add content there and getting the translations on, it starts getting popular. And this is happening even for our US content. We license from NBC Universal, A&E, Sci-Fi. Now we have some content out of Turner and Cartoon Network. Even older shows from NBC Universal so are doing phenomenally well. There are shows that are now starting to become sort of prime time for this audience who's seeing it for the first time. So subtitles are beyond just English. So giving you a sense of how many languages are popular and the genre not just being Korean, what you see in this chart is sort of the content origin, where we've licensed the content from. What you're seeing on the left side is the languages that they're subtitled in. So the question always is, well, is Korean just a phenomena, or is there a lot of other genres like that? In our case, we're finding a lot of great content that also is getting translated and growing. So languages, to the left you're seeing, we have Korean, Taiwanese, Japanese, Chinese, Philippines, Hong Kong, and Thai content today that's translated in 40 to 94 languages. Higher end of that is the Korean, Taiwanese, and Japanese shows. You're seeing surprise shows in the middle area, like UK and Spain and Egypt and France, that has 15 to 39 subtitles, and there is another 30+ countries that have 5 to 15. And we were known initially for Asian sites. Now that we're adding the rest of global primetime, it's starting to become massive. So the argument from the Hollywood perspective is everyone is really focused on sort of the Hollywood shows, and they think that's the majority of the value. But if you look at global primetime from every country and you distribute it globally, you see that there's a massive torso in the middle. And that's a huge, huge market. And that's something that's still being neglected, and there could be a huge growth opportunity in it. To a point where we've mapped it, we looked at content in 3 different groupings today. We look at it as a group 1 will be the US, UK, sort of the higher production value shows. Group 2 would be probably Korean, Japanese anime, Bollywood movies. I would put Mexican novelas from Univision and Telemundo in that grouping. It doesn't mean they can't move. Doesn't mean the shows in any group wouldn't get the same ratings as the top shows, or a group 1 wouldn't get the ratings of a group 3. But group 3 itself, to give you an example, is still massive. And we feel that's 50% of the consumption possibility. And shows from Venezuela and one Turkish partner that we're looking to work with, IPAIM and NBC, the Arabic content from Egypt and UAE. These shows combined, even if you look at it on YouTube, the way they have passively put it there, they have 2 billion video starts. It's phenomenal, and this is about a matter of a year. And these are there just in the local language. So imagine taking a Turkish show, putting Arabic subtitles on it, and starting to open up the entire Middle East for it. This is where that 3.2x multiple basically comes in. You take shows that are great, you open it up in markets that are open for you. We're happy to geo-block, and in this kind of a model, you can geo-block with whatever partners you're working with, and then you can open up to other markets because there's still demand. And there's such shortage of a premium play out there that if you find the right partnerships, advertisers will start chasing those users because there isn't one play where they're bringing all these folks together as a premium site. So we feel that it can be very massive, and it can be across platforms. And through subtitles, you can make that market even larger. So quick summary, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. The thought for us, or what has worked for Viki, or what's working and scaling right now, is that you got to go global, but you got to go really global. This is not going to MIPCOM and selling to the 5, 10 countries that you typically sell to. There could be an opportunity to go massive, and it doesn't have to be first window. A show that's even there for 6 months still can find a huge audience. So it doesn't have to be where you're disrupting your existing windows, but there could be an opportunity to go across windows or create some holdbacks and still grow. By going global, I mean really global, test the audience, get that data, understand where the viewership is, and then try and cross and upsell it from that point on. And this is even if it's behind holdback windows, even if it's not on exclusive. We don't license exclusive because we don't need to. Our community translates so fast and for free that even if someone else were to get it, really there's cost and effort involved with it. So we get it and we sort of open it up. So we don't mind someone else having it because they market make with us as well. And this is even if we don't license for the home market. Home markets typically are the most expensive. We can't afford Korean content in Korea. We can't afford it for Japan, but we can afford it for, let's say, the rest of the world. So our play, the way we built Viki is, let's take the content that's from a home market. Let's not take it to the next 5 or 10 that they're already in. Let's open up the next 100. Let's open up the world for them. And we feel if you do this across platforms, we have mobile, we have Android, we're across devices basically, including smart TV now. We have a strong partnership with Samsung where they preload our app. We're starting to see big surprises. Bollywood shows doing great in Korea, which was a surprise to us. Korean movies, #1 in the world for consumption is Saudi Arabia, which is not a place that we would have expected. So if you get it across platform, you're going to see different viewership and different kind of trends happening across different devices. So the fans are out there. I know margins are getting squeezed, but I think the advertising dollars or even subscription kind of play for something like this, it will have to chase where the fans are because the demand is there. There just has to be access for them, even if it's behind Windows. That's all from my end. I'll open it up to questions. OK. I see some hands in the back, I think.
Hi. Just wondering, you've got a huge increment from the home market viewership. In terms of revenue, what does that look like?
Revenues in a market like this, or sort of a model that we're building, will always trail. Because to get to revenues, to be able to open the market, you need to get to critical mass. For example, in Southeast Asia, we're selling out. Because we've hit critical mass, we have, let's say, more than 1 million or 2 video starts per market, that advertisers of sort of large brands like the P&Gs and Cokes and Samsungs that we work with feel that there is enough of a critical mass for them to put ads in. But places like Latin America, we're just starting ad sales. Places like in the US, we had started with networks. Now we're starting to move to premium. So as you grow the market and as you move in that direction where you're hitting, roughly we're seeing 500 to about sort of 1 million starts or roughly 300,000 users, that's a market you can start unlocking in terms of value. And we've gotten to a point now where we're getting about 65 million video starts for long form on a monthly basis, and roughly about 17 million users, plus about 3.8 to 4 on mobile. It's starting to get to a point where we're opening up these markets. So Europe does well, Southeast Asia does very well, Australia, Japan are strong, and US is strong. Middle East and Latin America, I would say, are catching up. Does that answer your question? Great.
May I know how do you exactly get the audience or the viewers to do the subtitles or translation? Do you do marketing campaign for, how do you get people to know about your website when you first tap into another new country?
Actually, Wiki was a class project when I was in graduate school with my co-founders, and it was a language education tool. The idea was for people to come and learn a new language, subtitle 2 at a time. But instead of having sort of a boring professor talking, we decided that maybe putting content like Korean drama from YouTube would be a place to grow. And the numbers started doing this. I was at NBC Universal at the time until I took the leap. Right? The parachute doesn't open until you jump, kind of a theory. So when we did that, we realized that instead of building top-down and getting the audience, building it bottom-up in this case works. So what we thought is there are three different ways in our view of sort of building a media destination site. It can be heavily content-focused. Let's say the $500 million that Hulu is spending in the US today, we can't afford that, so we're not in that game. We create the content arbitrage where we get the content for markets that's affordable, but get high-value CPMs on it. Another way of doing it, we feel from technology. You do really great SEO, you have hundreds of engineers, which again, we don't have. We're still, December 2nd was our 2nd-year anniversary. So we did it bottom-up where you get the people with a megaphone, and they are the ones that go get others. So we built really good tools for people to subtitle, and there was fan-subbing communities from the 80s, if you look at Japanese anime. We got them in one place. We also got fans to watch the content. We create inboxes for them, ways to get level systems, to get badges, to give them credit in the beginning of the video, and to give them even team names. So even when we put content on a Hulu or a Netflix, we always give credit to the team. They're the heart and soul of these things, right? They're volunteering their time. So we always put them there, and we always found tools and ways to make their life easier. The rest was all them. The rest was the community going recruiting that nurse or going and recruiting that lawyer on the drama. And they fight over periods and commas and particles. That's how passionate they get about it. So they actually grow organically. And I would say if you get about 300 translators per language, it starts tipping. It starts sort of the genre starts growing. Korean started for us at really 300. Taiwanese was around 300. That seems to be a tipping point. OK? Great. Thanks for your time.